Welcome back to the Keep Going podcast with Vin Kennedy. I'm the host, Vin Kennedy. Today with special guest, this is Lewis. Lewis, you want to do a brief intro on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm the head strength coach at UNC Charlotte right now for the football team. Um, I've been a lot of places as a coach. Started as an intern in South Florida. I was an intern at the University of Virginia. I was a grad assistant at Mississippi State, uh, full-time assistant at Georgia Tech, Michigan, and Mississippi State. And then I got my first head job at North Texas. Then another head job at Louisiana Lafayette, another head job at Buffalo, another head job at Georgia Tech, and then this is my fifth head job at UNC Charlotte. So been a lot of places real quick, but gained a lot of wisdom through it. And I recently wrote a book called Firelighters 365 that took me a lot of years to kind of put it together. It's just a message of the day for coaches, athletes, and leaders to shed some fire into your heart. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that. And I love that you touched on that. So what was kind of like the inspiration for the book?
it's just who I've always been as a coach. Like every day after the lift or the run, I've had the kids, I've always shared a message of the day. So these messages consist of like, tough times I've been through, mistakes I've made, the wrong mindsets I've had, anything I can give the kids to help them. You never know who needs to hear what on a certain day. That's why I started doing it. And over time, it's just started building into this thought of putting a book together. And I thought it could help a lot more people than just the team I'm with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually, I mean, that's even how I saw you was it like your social media has a crazy way of just spreading like wildfire. And you became basically like a motivational speaker on the side, it seemed like as well.
Yeah, I never looked at anything like that because my first three head jobs, I gave a message of the day every day, and there was no cameras around. No one knew besides my team. And then when I got to Georgia Tech, I did the same thing, but cameras were there. So that started blowing up a little bit because they started posting them. And then during COVID, I had to figure out how to try to reach the team still with motivation. So I started just like walking around my neighborhood giving a message of the week. And it turned out to be like, you know, a lot more people were interested in that message too. So that's where it kind of got bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And it's funny too, because like that's success, right? Like what you're doing when no one watches. And I know you touch on that a lot as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, everyone's gonna, want to see what you're doing in the light, but the dark is where, I've probably been the most proud of the work I've done, and that's what I try to preach to these kids. Like it's not game day. It's every other day but game day that makes game day possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I just had a long talk with a buddy actually right before we hopped on, and he's kind of like it seems as if he's like missing direction. Like the big pillars in his life, like job, health, like are all under wraps. And I think a lot of young men are in this spot where it's, you coming out of college and you don't really know what to do. What kind of advice do you have or do you give to your team like when they're in that spot?
Just what makes you happy? Like when you think about waking up and going to work one day, like what would you want to do? Like what is it that's going to really like, man, I don't feel like I'm going to work. I feel like I'm just going to be myself somewhere. And that's hard to do. And especially if you really want to make a lot of money one day. But I feel like the money comes when you just kind of follow your heart with stuff. Otherwise, you might make money one day, but you might be miserable. And that's no way to live either. It's a hard balance because I know a lot of people don't care what their job is. They just got to provide, which I completely understand. But man, if you could figure out the passion behind like why you want to do something and what's really going to fill the bucket for you, I think that's such an edge and such a cool life that you'll be proud of one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like a step forward from like coaching and just life experience, what have you seen that makes a great leader? Like someone that has that passion, has that fuel. Like what else is it? Like what's the intangibles?
Yeah, it's so much more than passion. It's like it's just there could be a lot of passionate players on the team that don't do the right thing. So, you know, we try to preach here like or anywhere I've been, if your work ethic, toughness, resilience, accountability, being a great teammate don't have your back, like there's no substance underneath you, it's gonna be hard for anyone to listen to you when you talk. And like, so that I always say, if you're not, leading by example, you know, just don't be vocal, because there's nothing bothers me more than like a coach that tries to like tell me something to do when I was a player. That's, not about that life. That's going to call me soft when he can never do it, or he's going to try to like degrade a kid in front of everyone when really it's just because he got degraded as a player before. And he's got no reasoning for it. So that bothers me a lot. And that's the exact opposite of what I've always tried to be. Like, just do the players' workouts, man. Try to do more than the players, and then coach them through the workout that day. Like, that's where I've found my voice with the kids, and yeah, I get to know them first and all this stuff that goes into it. But being a leader, you don't have a clock; it doesn't turn off. It's just kind of, it's either who you are or you're not. And I feel like there's way too many kids that just want to lead when the moment's up, when it's time to go out for the lights to come on, and when it's time for everyone to see, oh, their family's here now, or oh, their brother came to the game. Like, oh, I got to show out. Nope, you didn't show out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, bud. So you're not playing. Like, that's to me what people need to understand more, because that's life, and it's not easy out there, and no one cares about you, and no one really cares where you played or what your resume is. Like, look, you either show up every day, you work really hard, you're respectful, you care a lot, you're good to other people, or no one's going to do anything for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like it's living the way you lead, and it comes down to I've heard you talk about like even in like suicides, like touching the line. Like, yeah,
Yep.
you could skip out on touching the line, but like that that marginal gap grows. It compounds against you when you don't do the little things right.
Yeah. I mean, I always give the example of a 10-degree angle with your hands. You put your hands at a 10-degree angle, and at first, you keep ignoring stuff. It's not a big deal. Like, you're not going to notice it. But you keep doing those little things wrong over time, and all of a sudden you keep separating those hands, and all of a sudden you got a huge problem. And and no one knows how they got there, and it's very shocking to them that they created their own storm. And it's the same kind of lingo you just say to don't create your own storm and get mad when it rains, because it's the truth, man. A lot of these kids don't have like guidance, steering them in the right direction all the time. So that's why I love being a strength coach. I can figure out who these kids are. I can figure out what they want to do. And if they're not on track, I can call it out real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely like just from the way you lead, you're cultivating that for them and like just showing them the path. And I wonder, because obviously you've been coaching for a while now, if you've seen a shift, because I've taken a lot of content from like Chris Williamson and guys in like the self-help space, and it seems that we're at almost like a crisis with young men, right? Like lost in direction or even just like with comfortability. Like life could be so comfortable if you choose for it to be that way. Have you seen personally like a shift from even the athletes or just the young men you come across?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard because there's so many kids going through so many things you'll never know about if you never ask. And that's to me like the very dangerous part of this world right now. Like, everyone's got the ability to be bullied by an opinion, and especially guys on Division I football teams or in sports right now. Because I mean, the reality is you could win 7 Super Bowls, you could win 6 NBA titles, and still people are going to talk about you in a negative way. So I think that in itself should give people comfort that nobody's safe, and it's not just you out there getting criticized. Like, if you shine, you're getting criticized. Like, I don't care who you are, and in any way, if you go for something big, there are gonna be negatives to it with people not liking you. All right, so like, everyone wants to see you do well, just not better than them. Like, that's the hard truth that nobody wants to hear, but it's the truth. And you could be happy for people, but like, a lot of people don't want you to be that good. It's funny how that works. But as a coach, it's the opposite. You want the kids to just shine. You want them to go after the biggest dreams they have, but you got to teach them about those failure rates too, because the failure rates are much higher these days than the success rates. And I feel like if you manage failure well, you're going to have a high chance of success.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I mean, instant gratification is like what our whole world has become. You see it even in the NFL. Like, I mean, quarterbacks get like 1 year, maybe, if they're lucky to even just perform. It really is crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that I've heard like when it, about in again in this like the self-help space is that people are either scared of their own greatness or scared to fail. But personally, and I think you might align more with this as well. I think people are just scared of the work, right? Like you want to run a marathon, but it rains on Monday, and that's enough for you to be like, all right, well, this just isn't for me.
Right. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. It's like um is it easier to admit your flaws or your potential? And it's honestly harder to admit your potential. Like it's nice that you let everyone know what you're not good at. And I think that's being vulnerable and being honest. But if you really want to be honest, you'll admit what you're capable of. And that's a hard look in the mirror right there, because it's embarrassing, because it's going to tell you what you're not doing. It's going to tell you what you're not taking advantage of right now. And that's a hard pill to swallow, especially as time goes on. Like you could keep saying, man, I can't start that. I'm so far away from it. Man, I can't hike that mountain. I'm only here. Man, I can't lunge that mile. I'm not even a lap in and it's already hurting. Like it's the same thing for goal setting. It's like all these people think they have no time to like get there. And reality is that's all you got. You got time. You got time right now. Like it doesn't matter if you the problem is people don't want to be seen at the bottom of a certain career. They don't want to be seen at the bottom, or if the time passed and now they're 29 and they're like, yeah, I can't restart now. I might as well just keep going in this miserable career I'm in. That's not true, man. Like by the time you're 43, you're gonna be very thankful that you made that switch when you were 29. And you could complain about it, but if you could change it now and realize you do have time, and you do have time to be gritty and tough and resilient and persevere through any setbacks, like it's gonna pay off. And a lot of people just fear the bottom. They don't want to be seen that way right now.
It's so true. And it's like, it's also listening to your own voice, right? Because there's this societal pressure to do anything and just conform. And you, I know you don't even know, but like you're preaching to the choir right there. Like I'm actually 28, but I switched careers when I was 24, switched careers again when I was 25, and now I'm starting my own business. And it's just like I've fully leaned into that because I'm like, who, if I'm not living for myself, who am I living for?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then do you have a family?
I don't. 28 with absolutely no responsibility but myself.
So yeah, you can dive in right now. And then it's even there's a lot more pressure on you when you got three kids and a wife, and you keep getting let go from jobs that you had no control over. That's hard, man. It's not there's no silver lining on a lot of things. Like even when you have a dream, right? Even when you're passionate about what you're doing. Like I love strength conditioning. I've always loved it. I've found my niche, right? That doesn't mean things are handed to me. That doesn't mean like, oh, he cares about that. Let me hand him this job. Like, oh, he does a good job, but oh, it doesn't matter. They lost, so fire him. Like nothing's easy. No one. Like I've learned so much that there's only a few people you can actually call, and there are not many people that really care about you. Like if they're doing fine, they don't care about you. Like they'll say, hey, if I hear anything, I'll let you know, and you'll never hear from them again. Like that's the hard reality to hear, even when you're in the line of your dream. Like it's not going to be easy no matter what you're doing. So you might as well go chase your dream.
Yeah. It's so true. And just hearing you say that, like I again, just seeing like what you're about and who you're about, that's definitely something you cultivate for your athletes, right? Is like the difference of like you do care. Like I could tell, I could see it in the messages you spread, really.
Yeah, I mean it's every day. It's not fake. I don't want to talk to them if I'm not doing what they're doing. Like today our team's coming in to work out, but before they came in, I for no reason, right? Just to challenge myself, just ran the stadium 5 times. Like our stadium's not big, but I haven't done that before here. So I'm still trying to like challenge myself. So when I'm around these guys that are, some of these freak athletic guys, I don't feel out of place. Like I feel like I'm actually on their level of reaching my own potential. And if they're not doing it, I make them feel kind of awkward. Like, hey, if you just switch bodies with me, like I will take you to the NFL. But you can do it too. You just got to care more. Like that. So I try to be as real as I can to these kids, as honest as I can, but I also really enjoy the hard work it takes to be a good leader.
Yeah. And I think that's such a unique thing, especially as you get older, because again, it goes back to comfort and it's so easy to sink into like, well, look what I've already done.
Right. Yeah, it's everything, man. It's the boards I put up for their testing days. I have what I did on the board. And if they beat me, they can sign the board. It's just like extra motivation. They talk crap to me, I talk it back, and it's a good environment.
I love that, man. And I just a side note here. I train for like marathons and I do like ultra marathons and a ton of running. I have a big like track workout today. I purposely did not run it until after this conversation because I know I'll be fired up to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably gave you a few extra miles there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to switch gears a little bit, do you see parallels between like coaching and parenting?
Yes, a lot. And honestly, like the discipline part is pretty much the biggest one I'll bring up. Like, you can't punish a kid unless you tell him he can't do something first. Like, you got to set standards, you got to set rules, and you got to set boundaries. And if they cross those boundaries and everything is understood beforehand, then they did something wrong. You can't not say anything, not set boundaries, and not have expectations of the kids. And then they do something wrong, and then you punish them. You can't, like, if kids at your house do something wrong and they know what's wrong, you got to take care of that. If the players are not held accountable after they know something's wrong, that's a problem, and you got a big culture issue. They have to be dealt with. So, like, it's especially now I have 3 kids. So if you let one get away with something, you can't let the other 2 see that, like, or else you're doomed. So it's really trying to be fair, treat everyone the same. No one can get away with that, no matter who you are, and make the expectations very clear. So if someone does do something wrong, they understand fully they're going to get dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big parallel in my life and in yours as well is just discipline. And where does your discipline really like come from? Where was that cultivated?
As a player, I always had goals to like lead the league in rushing or, have these big runs. And, I loved carrying the ball. I loved whether I was a quarterback or a running back. So I always loved going to the field by myself and just like, running through plays and sprinting on my own and getting a good workout. And that kind of carried over to my career. Like, I've never I've never stopped acting like I'm always playing on Saturday. And so I'm always sprinting, I'm always running, I'm always lifting as hard as I can. I'm always trying to push the needle on different events in the weight room and see what I can always do. And honestly, I'm very thankful I still can, because it's been years since I played, but I still feel like I could at any point. It's just not because I'm anything special. It's because I never dropped the ball on my own potential. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. It's not like, oh, he's just genetic. No, man, he just cares a lot. Like, that's the bottom line. And the discipline comes from just caring a lot.
Yeah. I think it's funny too because people set big goals and then they hit them and it's like now I get to rest and it's like you're saying like always having that itch to reach for more potential. It just helps you develop as a person.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
And what parallels do you see between football and life?
Oh man. I mean, football teaches you how to be a good teammate, to be accountable, to be selfless, but also want to do well on your own. To really count on other people that you trust to help you get to your goal. Um, just to be organized and study and to ask questions and practice hard. And I mean, the list can keep going, but they all transfer to real life. And that's, besides like the injuries that always happen in football, it's like the greatest game to teach lessons of life. I mean, I think a lot of sports do that, but I mean, football could basically be described as, are you tough enough to bounce back from a setback? Like, I've been injured multiple times in my life. I've been told that another kid's going to play over me before. I've been lied to. I've been benched. I've been on the scout team. I've been all conference. I've been a captain. I've scored multiple touchdowns. I've had great seasons rushing. I've transferred. I've had all these experiences go through my mind with just the game of football. So I take all that experience, wrap it up with a bow, and give all these kids what I've been through, and then help them with life. So I feel like I'm glad I didn't have it easy as a player either, because it helps me every day on the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind tapping into like what's been like the biggest adversity you faced either on the field through coaching or just in life?
just getting fired all the time. Like, you can't, as a strength coach, you can't control the results of the game. You can't control the results of the season, really. You can try to keep the guys healthy. You can always try to keep them motivated and together. But beyond that, after the warm up for the game, it's kind of like, good luck, boys, and I hope we can get it done. So when we win, it's a lot of fun. When you lose, it's really tough because you still got to go tell your family you got to move, and that's not easy, man. The last move really hurt. Like, we were in Atlanta for 4 years, and we honestly got fired for really no reason. And that's hard to tell your parents, or it's hard to tell your wife, hard to tell your kids that have friends in school. Like, what do you mean we can't go back to our school? Like, I don't understand. So, them looking at me sideways sometimes gets to that point, and it's brutal, man. It's not, that part's not fun at all. And I know when I signed up for it, it just doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I could see there is just the leader you are, you could create home wherever you are. So I think that's something special.
That is true. I mean, our kids make friends quick. They are resilient kids, and so far, very thankful for how it's gone. And just, I do agree, home is wherever you're together, for sure.
Absolutely. And the last question, man, I ask everybody is what keeps you going, and like what's your deep why?
Um, what keeps me going? Obviously, my family. There's no option. There's no plan. There's, like, you can't fail. Like, you have no, there's no room for it. You got to be smart on your job. You got to be responsible because they're all counting on you. But more than that, it's just, I believe I'm doing this for the right reasons. I believe that I found a career that is exactly who I am. And I'm very thankful to work with so many kids every day and just be there for them on a daily basis. And it's very hard for me to not say, like, I just love this job. It's very fulfilling to me daily. I get to do the players' workouts. I coach them through the workout. If they need help on the side, I'm always there to talk to them. It helps me to be a better parent, and I never feel like I'm working. It's one of the greatest feelings you can have, I guess, in life that I've maybe took for granted for a while. I just kind of, is what I've always done. So, I look at a lot of my friends that they have jobs to support their family, and they don't get to do what I do every day. They don't have the environment of, you're still on a team, So I'm very, very thankful that I still can do this, and it fills my heart every day. I love the job I have. So
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear it. And honestly, I really, really appreciate the time and appreciate the way you lead.
yeah, thank you. And the book I wrote, it's got like 365 messages just from my heart. Like, maybe it's something I learned over time, or maybe it's something I picked up. But I mean, I gave my daughter and my son a copy of the book, and my son reads it almost every night. And like, that's, to me, like, if you're gonna leave something behind, leave something that, like, you can't get rid of. Like, those are all my thoughts. Those are all my feelings. Those are all the tough times. Those are all the great times. It's all the effort over these past years, and I'm proud of that. Like, I'm proud of that book, and I put a lot of time into it, and it'll just be one of those journeys throughout my life that I'll always have, and I'm thankful for that because it's just part of who I am too.
Absolutely. And where can people find you on social media?
At Lou Carella on Instagram, and then at Louis Carella on Twitter or X, and the book's on Amazon. Firelighters 365.
Awesome, man. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you too.